It's going to save $4.4 million over the length of the bond, and the current payment was ceased, already paid off, and next year's will also not have, we will not have to pay that. So our original budget was for $3.2 million, and we paid $783 this year in interest, and that'll be the end of this amount for this fiscal year. So the difference between the 3,200,000 and the 783,000 brought you an additional amount that you can repurpose.
How much was that, Nancy? Say it again. How much is available?
7.6 million. So I also want to explain to you, we're doing a rolling budget, and our original budget was $6 million worth of revenue. In the first quarter, we increased that amount by $2.9 million, and at the second quarterly meeting, we increased it by additional $2.1 million. We have been having a very successful sales tax coming through, so we will keep you updated on that. So your original budget from 6 million is now at 11 million for bringing in sales tax, estimated amount.
What is the additional transfer to the general fund?
That was budgeted. Marcus, you want to explain that? That was budgeted in the original budget. It's not extra, it was already budgeted for.
Yeah, so that was to offset the budget deficit that was estimated for this current fiscal year. So even with all this additional revenue, if you watched my presentation at the last council meeting, we still have a $4 million deficit for the general fund that's projected. Now, that will likely change, hopefully, as we continue through the second half of the fiscal year. And we may end up with no deficit. What I would suggest to you is when we do our third quarter update, which will be important because that'll reflect the regional shutdown that occurred in December, January, and we'll see how the TOT and sales tax come in. But I will be advocating to council, perhaps they reconsider that transfer, which would free that 2.8 million up, and it would fall to the bottom and be available for budgeting for projects. But it's hard to say that right now because we still have a 4 million whatever deficit projected unless revenues come in higher or expenditures come in lower. So it wasn't quite right for us to suggest that at the mid-year update.
I see. Okay. So, and just to clarify, so basically the first 2 quarters of this fiscal year, the revenue, the Measure J revenue is above which I guess would be July through December 2020 was above 2019.
Yes.
And we're already, it looks like we're basically what we thought we would be for the whole year.
That's correct.
Okay.
We've exceeded our annual budgeted revenue
Already.
6 months, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have the problem of trying to figure out how we're going to prioritize. Like I talked to you about months ago, we got to figure out how we're going to prioritize which projects we bring back and when. But that's a good thing to deal with.
Yes.
I have a quick question, and for are the budget deficits expected beyond 2021, or at this point, is it just kind of this current? I mean, should we be expecting for it to go into any additional fiscal years? At this point, no.
We won't know until we further evaluate it, depending on if there's another outbreak or if people are getting their vaccinations and if anything else is going to shut down again. So we don't know at this point.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking, I mean, that makes sense. Mercedes has opinions. I think what would be helpful to understand is if, as the rolling budget is kind of determined every quarter, just for us as Measure J commissioners, being able to answer to community members how that impacts, not just like what the amount is, but you know, how that number is fluctuating. So it's just kind of a little tricky to just see that 2.8. And then, I mean, I got a couple of emails asking about it, and I didn't have like much context. So if this were to go, I mean, let's really hope it doesn't go into another fiscal year, but just some type of context as to how much is being moved from Measure J to the general fund, or which amount is set. So previously we had 3.3 sent to the Measure J funds, or 3.3 previous Measure J funds from last fiscal got transferred over. And I, at least for me, it wasn't on my radar that we were going to do it again. So I think that's just like, the reasoning makes sense. It just wasn't on my radar, and I didn't have any quick answers for people. So just something to keep in mind.
Okay, thank you. This budget was approved on 6/30 of 20, was it 20? Yes, this budget was approved on 6/30 of 20. So it's not like we just added that in there. It's been in there since over a year, if not longer.
The additional 2.8?
Yep. If you go to the original budget brief online, you will see it in there.
Okay.
It may have been, we haven't had, we didn't have a couple meetings, and I think the last meeting we didn't have it in yet, so.
It was in there.
It was?
It's been-
Okay.
Yeah, it's
So-
been in there for the last several meetings.
But the
But
bottom line, we have 7.6 million we could potentially allocate now, and potentially that 2.8 in addition could come back as well, if, depending on what happens now.
Correct.
For the next 6 months.
Commissioner Soto, I think what I'll suggest is that, you know, Nancy and I, as we work towards starting to develop next fiscal year's budget, it won't be as conservative as how we approach this fiscal year's budget, now that we understand how strong online sales are, and, you know, that the shutdown that we feared was going to be a long shutdown wasn't. And so I don't expect there'll be any transfers required from Measure J to the general fund. And I believe that aside from perhaps December, January, we'll still see some additional revenues over budget for the rest of the year. So that 7.6 will continue to grow. And we may be able to recover most of what we lost, you know, over the last 2 fiscal years trying to solve the deficit.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think we should message that out to the community as much as possible, because that's like really great.
I actually think we might see this first quarter this year, because typically that's so strong, you know, stronger than the last 2 quarters, and a lot of that won't necessarily get made up for with leisure travel without the big events, but hopefully.
Yeah.
So is the bottom line, we kind of had near $9 million for Major J, is that what you're saying?
7.6.
And then the 2.8?
The additional 2.8, council would have to affirmatively approve canceling that transfer, because it's already part of the adopted budget.
Okay.
But what I will do is, when we do the 3rd quarter update, if we're still seeing additional general fund revenues coming in over budget, and we're really eliminating any deficit of the general fund, then that's the time to argue that that transfer is not necessary, in my opinion.
Okay. So we have 7.6 million to work with. That's the bottom line.
Today,
Yeah.
but we believe that'll go up.
Okay,
Great.
that would be wonderful. Thank you.
And I have a tag along question with that of the 7.6, potentially more. When is that actionable for us to, as the commission, to act on recommended projects, which would then in turn go to the council?
I would say now. I don't know how the best way to do it. I don't know if you individually look at the list of projects that got deferred or canceled as part of the budget adoption process. I went to great lengths to be very clear in how I prepared those schedules to show the different Measure J projects that basically got cannibalized, and that money then transferred to address last year's deficit, and as well as part of this year's deficit. So, you know, we have those list of projects, and so the question is going to be, which of those are we going to prioritize? And what I would, because we know these are multi-year projects, so rather than funding them all up front in 1 year, doing it like a 5-year CIP and really figuring out, okay, which projects are we going to fund the design phase next year versus fund the design phase 2 years out, and then really start working with Joelle and Dawn on doing a 5-year CIP to deliver all of those projects that we had previously approved.
By next commission meeting, I should be able to look at the list that Marcus used to cancel projects and have it sort of an outline of those 5 years. We've been working on the CIP books. All those projects that were taken out have still been considered. We've divvied up the money the way we think we could divvy up over 5 years. And we can present that to the commission. Maybe the 10 that we think need money. Obviously, we'll need the money to do the repaving, so that takes a good chunk of the money. So we can present something next commission meeting, and you can see our CIP book, the way it's going to start looking, and start making decisions, 2-3 years down the road, or at least thinking about what we can allocate in the next 3-5 years.
And Joel, these would be all ready pre-approved projects. So what was approved by council back in June or May of 2019? And then
it's all those and other projects that are coming online. We're basically, when we develop our CIP, we're looking at any new project that's coming online, how much money we need and how we can use Measure J funds to divvy up over the 5 years to say if we want to build it in year 4, how much money we need year 1 through 4 to then pay to have completely funded by year 4. So what it allows us to do is be able to deliver projects on a year-by-year basis and make sure we have the money in the right fiscal years.
And are we looking at getting back on schedule 2 with the whole street repaving? I know there was.
That would be the priority, is to finish that 2-year paving contract. And
Right.
One thing I would think we could suggest to council is 1 million of that 2.8 transfer should come back towards that project, because normally they would budget $1 million from general fund for the paving, add the 3 million from Measure J. So we can strategize, but yeah, I would recommend the commission prioritize that first, and then all the other projects.
Put it on the list for next month, yeah, so we can.
So can I ask a question then? So if we put that back, next month becomes, we're into March, and this fiscal year ends in June, right? End of June. So for something like the street repairs, I mean, could you actually spend all of that $3 million in the next 3 months? Or would it, by definition, get pushed over?
I mean, for us to get it to council to authorize to bid and award, you're 3 to 4 months out, and then scheduling the work. So the reality is we're already in mid-February. It's going to be, the work will start likely in the next fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
But what might happen is we do another 2-year project using this additional money we have this year plus what we budget next year. Is one thing we could do.
And if we budget for this year, and the project hasn't started, we just carry the funds over to the next year. They don't disappear at the end of the year.
Right.
So any projects that have been approved by council, we budget for, and we have line items. And if they're not spent, we go ahead and carry the balance or whatever's left over in there for that project.
Can I ask how many streets are still to be repaired or redone?
Lots.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's not an easy question, though. We have
Okay.
pavement management program where
Okay.
we do paving and we do slurry. So it's not an easy question to answer. There's lots of streets that need to be worked on. And we can present that if you want. I do have a PowerPoint that will show you where we're at with that. So I can provide that information, send you an email.
Joelle, do you think we should maybe send them the list of the projects that we deferred due to COVID? And then we could go through that list, and maybe at the next meeting, we can regroup and come up with some ideas, what their thoughts are and what you want to bring back?
So my thought is Don and I would work on presenting how we're going to do this, the 5-year CIP. Instead of going back to an old list, we've already looked at that list. We've already created the CIP packets or sheets for them. We want to present that and show the commission how we would divvy up over 5 years. So yeah, we're not going backwards. We're taking what was done and moving forwards.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm sorry,
And if we
CIP?
can get that in advance of that next meeting, maybe a week prior, just so that we have a chance to really digest it. I'll look at it, form opinions, so we can discuss.
Mm,
Commissioner Soto, the CIP, it's capital improvement program.
got it, okay.
I do think one of the things that we discussed in the last couple of meetings was that it was important to try and get as many of the programs we had already approved and discussed completed and moved forward. So I think that would be helpful to get that list. And I think there are probably some which are easier and quicker to do and some that are not. So that would be helpful. And then in terms of, I know you're going to go, I don't know if you're going to go through the list. There's certain ones that we had already approved that are going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
Is there anything else in just the few ones here that need to be discussed now in terms of allocating more money?
So I'm not prepared to talk about the other projects that are not really on the list that I shared as part of your packet. These are the park projects. I can discuss those. I don't know if we're done with the financials. If we are, we can move on to the discussion of projects.
Yeah, let's move on to item number 3, the park projects.
Before we move on, could I just ask the gentleman to your side, Doug, have we all met him? Do we know who that is?
I received the email. A couple of years ago, I applied to be part of the commission. At that time, I was turned down, but I have expressed an interest in just being informed and knowing what is going on. I live in the south side of Palm Springs. Doug Osteich is my name.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay, Joel, I'll let you go.
Just a quick question. I see a couple other people. Are we also assuming they're community members, Stacy and Brian, or are those staff?
Stacy,
staff.
Oh, Stacy was staff and then Brian is.
Brian's our new budget analyst, and he'll be filling in for me if I am unavailable or out of the office.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay.
All right.
Joel,
So
take it.
yeah, we can talk about the park projects. So we're making good progress. One of the first ones that I want to report on is the shade structure project, which was approved by council. We're actually in the works. We're trying to get the final documentation ready to go so that we could start constructing. So the shade structures will be constructed here fairly soon. So at the very top of the memo that I prepared, I try to show where, after some time, engineering has reviewed each one of the projects and come up with realistic estimates of cost. I know Linda was very wanted to get true numbers, and we've tried to do our best. So the very first one, I'll go through the chart there. The first one, the gym floor. We've estimated that it's not going to take more than $130,000. So that we have, I think, $100,000 in our budget right now. We'll probably end up needing $30,000 more for that project. For the curtains at the pavilion, I think if we're going to do what we ended up doing is not doing acoustic curtains. We're going to do standard curtains for shade, but then we're working on an acoustic system, a system that can provide the proper audio for that building, the shape and size of it. So our staff is working on trying to get that all squared away so we can get contracts going. The shade structures, you've seen that one. That was the first one.
Joel, can I?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Could you explain more to me, like I'm a 6-year-old? When it says the curtains, the acoustical, what do you mean by that? I'm trying to figure out, I know those windows that are in the pavilion.
So
What is,
I'll back up and try to explain what the original condition was. That pavilion is used to do parties and to have events where speakers are used. And if you're standing in the back or anywhere in the pavilion, you hear a lot of noise and vibrations, and just the acoustics inside the building are not set up for events. So the Parks and Recs Commission wanted to fix that, and they thought that if we could put, I think they thought that it was mostly related to the windows in the pavilion. But when we started exploring, the issue really wasn't the windows themselves. There is some issue with the windows, but what we discovered is that the acoustics of the building are the problem. So we're trying to solve that. And to solve the acoustics, the sound that travels within the building, we're going to put a system that actually can help the person sitting in the back hear the music and be able to distinguish what's being said or the music that's being played. And as an added benefit, we're going to put curtains to block the sound.
thank you.
May I ask, how many events are scheduled there that do have music like that?
I don't have those numbers. I don't know if Stacy might be able to give us that information, but I think our Stacy, do you know?
Yeah, we actually, I know they have quinceañeras. There's also, when we're non-COVID time, there are dance classes that are held in there regularly, almost every week. As well as they have the after-school program with a lot of children, a lot of dancing. They have the summer program for the kids, as well as over the holidays.
Mm.
And I did understand that there was almost every weekend it was rented out for
And then there's, different parties, rentals, but I know they have consistent dance groups, sometimes during peak season, twice a week.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And we did bring this to the Parks and Rec Commission, and they were still interested in providing shade curtains because the gym gets really hot, the pavilion gets really hot in the summers, and even just the fact of shading so less air conditioning can be used during the summer, that was very appealing to that commission. So they're interested in just regular shades to block out the sun, as well as fixing the sound issues in the pavilion.
So no curtains then, just like a roll down shade?
That hasn't been, it's not going to be thick, heavy cloth curtains, but I don't think we landed on what kind of type of shade it's going to be, whether it's those automatic roll down ones or what, but the curtains are considerably cheaper than $100,000. So.
Yeah, I'd almost like to see them, I'd almost like to see line item pricing on that, or to me, I would think curtains would actually add acoustical value along with, it would give you could do roll down blinds when you want to just block the sun, but keep it light. But if you had a fabric back curtain, that like a hotel room, that's going to add a lot of acoustics and absorption. That might be cheaper than trying to engineer or come up with some type of baffling or something that they're looking at to put in the, I guess I don't know what acoustic equipment really means. And is that starting to get a little crazy with pricing?
No, I think that so we actually asked one of our on-call architects to go in and to review the condition to see if it was truly the windows and if providing curtains or shades or something like that would help the situation. The result of that was that it wasn't going to really help. It was more of the building itself. The layout of the building is what's causing the acoustics to not be to perform properly. The other added issue is that the soffits or the supporting structure where we would hang anything that would be heavy enough to provide some sort of acoustic dampening it's not there. The structure itself wouldn't be able to support the curtains that would be needed to provide any sort of acoustic dampening. So we then contacted an audio video specialist, and they actually came in and did a free acoustic analysis of the building, and were able to determine that indeed the way the building is, the walls, how it's set up doesn't allow, sound travels in all kinds of different directions and hits different angles where you're unable to get good audio inside of that building. So what we're doing is putting speakers and doing other things that are actually gonna resolve the issue that was brought forward.
Okay. Let's go to the next one, the shade structures.
For this,
Wow.
that one's been brought forward. You already approved the money, and we're moving forward with construction. The actual cost is $327,000. So,
Council approved it, right?
right. The moving of the funds, you initially gave us the authority to move it, and council approved that.
This will be, okay, 11. Okay.
We better be careful if we keep giving them authority like that.
So the next one was the playground surfacing. That one is still not resolved. There's the more we work on it, the more we run into scenarios that doesn't make it easy to move forward. We want to resurface the playgrounds, but we've determined that in certain areas, some of the playground equipment might be a little out of date, and we're trying to be careful that we don't spend a lot of money in resurfacing certain areas if the playground equipment is soon to be replaced. So we have we've gotten pricing for all types of different materials that could be used on the resurfacing from different price points. What we're gonna do as a team is we're gonna walk all these playgrounds to determine if the best course forward is to take one playground and resurface it in its entirety, or if we spread or if we minimize the repairs to just the most damaged areas on all of the park. So I'm still working on this one. It's not finalized, but the price range has been between $400,000 and $900,000 to do all the playgrounds.
Wow.
So yeah, and if you adding new equipment where some of the older equipment exists, that price keeps on going up. And I could really imagine the frustration of the Parks and Recs that they want something done now, but we're also trying to be fiscally responsible, right? And we don't just want to run out there and spend money where we're going to tear it up later on. So, you know, I want to be realistic. I'll take some of the heat, but I want to be able to make sure that when I deliver something, we're doing the right thing.
I would just also add to, like, the overall state of the playground, I think is important to keep in mind. If as having a new baby, it's been interesting going to the city parks in which the state of the playgrounds. And so if the playground itself is in worse condition, it seems a little counterintuitive to then resurface underneath or do kind of other landscaping things, right? If I wouldn't feel totally safe using it. And so I think that makes a lot of sense to be able to take a bigger look at the state of each park.
Can I ask Stacy a question? Years ago, when I was with Parks and Recreation, and we came up with the playground equipment at Sunrise Park, which encompass children with special needs, etc. The rest of the parks right now, the equipment, anything in any of the other parks that's questionable safety-wise?
It's not so much that we're having safety issues as we're having discontinued items, making it very challenging to replace. Perfect example, Victoria Park, we had a slide that we needed to replace. But once we removed it, we found that product has been discontinued. As you know, said that was even though it seems like it was yesterday, those playground rebuilds were 5, 6, and 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Which in the shelf life of, equipment such as playgrounds, it evolves rapidly. So we are struggling at this point with trying to find replacement components when we need them.
Thank you.
And I'll just kind of be a little bit more specific since we're talking about playgrounds. And I've been going to a lot of playgrounds. It stood out is the toddler seats at Sunrise Park are kind of like falling apart. And then I went to Ruth Hardy and they look great. It's like, oh, I should come here. I have the time to kind of pick and choose which park to go to. Those things, little things like that, would make a big difference if one park is walkable versus another. So
And I will definitely look into that.
thank you.
Those we can still replace. We still have those.
All right, moving on.
Yeah, so the next one is the, I guess I skipped one, park benches. I think with the $10,000, we, Stacy, I think we're able to just do what we were being asked to do, right?
Yep, we've already got the basics. We're just waiting on the Parks and Rec subcommittee meeting, or subcommittee to meet and choose a color. We've already got the locations, and as soon as I get a color, I'll make the purchase and we'll install them.
And then the other one's a pavilion landscaping. I know, Linda, you've had some concerns about that, right?
Do you have an irrigation system there now, Joelle?
Well, Stacy would be the one.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we do have an irrigation system right now. What I've sent over to the Parks and Rec subcommittee meeting for next week. We're adding in some suggested improvements for irrigation, for new DG to replace. We're talking about grading down, pulling out what's there, replacing, adding in a little bit more on the plant palette, but primarily it's the hardscape that I'm focusing on.
What about the tree inside building?
That one is probably going to have to come out.
Bravo.
And the same with the ones on the south side. As they grow, and they start to, the canopy starts to reach that maturity, it starts to touch the tops and the sides, and then it's a potential, issue for the structure itself.
The maintenance with the tree and what they do with it, it's really pretty old and pretty shabby there. And maybe
we can look at a replacement
play area, without plantings. That could be a nice hopscotch area or whatever the teachers want to do there, rather than put something that requires water and care.
I will work with the folks over at the pavilion to see what ideas they have.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so this would be an opportunity if we wanted to plant more, to ask for more money, right? If we needed additional funds.
For the original plan that I worked with our landscaper on when we were first really kind of looking at all the options to really spruce up the entrance there, it actually was a little closer, or the bids came in about 17,000. All that we had approved was 10,000. So we're modifying that and taking out more of the plants, so that all we're really focusing on is the hardscape and the DG. I can send you the plant palette they originally sent me, which was obviously very pretty and had a lot of bells and whistles. So we can look at that, and then again, depending on what the direction is on how we take care of that interior plant space, that's a pretty decent sized space. So I'm not really sure, what we're gonna have to, if we're gonna remove the irrigation, then we're gonna be doing some digging around those walls, and I think there's some windows in that area as well.
I would imagine that's very old irrigation.
It is.
Stacy? Yeah.
And it runs under the building, under that,
Yeah.
that
Oh, yeah.
exterior wall. So it won't be a little endeavor.
Yeah, I really thank Joelle for these numbers, because when we are so far off the reality and we're fishing to find and move money, I'd rather know the big bucks at the beginning so that we can spread it out over the year and finish projects. But I would question you could do that landscaping for 10,000. If your irrigation is that old, you may have to think about it. And with kids there, cactus isn't a real good idea in that entryway, so that's going to require some thought and thinking. So I appreciate your working on that, Stacy.
Can I ask if the commission is open to the prettier option? Because to me, an extra 7,000, 10,000.
10 more.
A lot, but I know the goal of the project was always to make it more inviting and more pretty. So that's the only reason why I ask.
Yes.
I am.
The 10,000 figure that we have, we're not removing any cactus. That's actually going to be one component that probably stays, because the rest of the older irrigation that we would be removing will take out more of the live plants and more of the, obviously that would eliminate any options for perennials or flower beds or anything along those lines. So an additional 10,000, yes. So if we actually had a total of 20,000, we could definitely look at adding more plants, adding the DG, replacing the irrigation, and probably replacing that tree inside.
I would like to see the palette just to see how
I can email that to you.
Uh-huh.
I will email that over to Nancy and Chantel, and they can forward on.
I would like to see that as well. I mean,
Yeah,
but I like the idea of spending the extra money to make it nicer.
We will forward it to all the commissioners.
Yeah, I think so. And we could spread that out a little bit. I mean, depending how long it takes to do the project, you could spread that over the next 2 years and
Yep.
do it.
Mhm.
There are ways
I mean,
to do it.
I'm not against career options. I think I would just, given the year and the like, I think I would defer. I'm looking forward to using some of the extra revenue for functional space that people can use. Like, people are so antsy in their homes, and if this is the priority in the pavilion, this and the acoustics, then let's do it. But I would hate to kind of do that, and then a year from now something comes up with the pool or something. So that's just kind of just my overall discussion.
I would just say the pavilion in general, the surrounding area gets a lot of use from all the different, it's not just the pavilion itself, but it's next to the pool. And I mean, there's a whole lot of things right around it that
Right.
It's an intersection.
Right. And I guess that's how I'm describing the pavilion, not just like the one building, but that whole region.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So do you come back next time and say what would be for $20,000, what you could do, or how do we do that?
Oh, actually, I will get the 2 quotes that we have, the fancier one that was just under 17, and then the modified one at 10. I'll send those both over to Nancy, and she'll send them out to you, and we can revisit next meeting.
Thank you.
This is a question about the big picture of Sunrise Park after the library has spent a lot of money and time looking at that entire piece of property. And does the city intend to do anything with the pavilion down the road, update it, make it bigger, or are you anywhere in that talking area? Does anybody know? Dead in the water.
Linda, I don't even think we've really moved forward on that because the pandemic hit shortly after that whole library discussion and keeping it in its location. And I know there was talk at the time of, we need to revisit that entire campus and make everything look more cohesive, from the Mizell Center to the Boys and Girls Club. But
Correct.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Steph, I don't think that this has been pursued at this point.
No, it hasn't. That
No.
library project's been shelved for now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think for now we baby step on what we can afford to do, and it's little things. That's a grand, huge project that's going to be millions. So, all right, let's move on to the sports field lighting.
Don, you want to touch a little bit on that one? You're on mute.
So yes, we again, the $100,000 is just for the design. We expect the full light conversion to be, thought it was over $1 million, 1.1 million. We did kind of work out the basis for hiring the RFP. I'm pretty much finalizing the RFP to hire the design. We keep kind of going back to this scope creep where, it's like, wouldn't it be nice if we had this and this? And, like, what about the soccer field area and this and that? And so we keep having to dial the project back. We're gonna focus on the ball fields and making sure that those gets replaced. But that's kind of where we're at now. So probably within the next couple of weeks, the RFP should be going out to hire the design company. Rather than using our on-calls, I think there's better companies out there that specifically do sports field lighting. And I think that's the route we want to go with this particular thing. So it is moving forward, and that 100,000 is just to hire the design and prepare all the construction plans and that nature. But that's where we stand for the sports field lighting.
Yeah. I think we did have a discussion, I think 2 meetings ago, that if there was extra money that we would complete the project. I know that may not still be the case, but now that Nancy found us $4 million less her commission, then you know, there is money to potentially complete projects that we wanted to do. So I think that could be a good one.
Mhm.
I agree.
I think that was your #1 priority about 2 meetings ago.
Yes.
It's a safety hazard.
Right. I know you wanted to move that to almost the top,
Yeah.
not only for the design, but for to get it actually completed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
So the other project, the Sunrise Park restrooms, we're actually looking to award that project on February 25th, next council meeting. So we got in our bids. They were interesting. We got 11 bids ranging from around 250,000 to 530,000. So it's quite a range there, but we were comfortable because we had a grouping of about 2 or 3 that were in the same price range. So I think we're comfortable that the low bidder is going to be able to perform for the 249,000.
Is this out of the shelved park restroom budget line item?
It doesn't look to be in the budget.
It's not. I think this is CD. I have to go back to see where
This is part of earlier approvals. I think Sunrise Park was part of the restroom projects that was approved back in 2019.
I'm going beyond the list that I showed there for the 7 projects of the Parks and Recs Commission. I started going off on another project.
And Brian, this will be part of the bigger list that we'll see next month. So this was projects that were approved by council along with Measure J in May of 2019. And the big one there were the restrooms being renovated and brought up to ADA requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a Measure J funded thing that wasn't, you didn't find out any funding.
Correct. And it got derailed due to COVID. So we were just getting underway with it and then COVID hit.
But in the James or Jesse ones, you found alternate funding for that, right? But this one is still Measure J?
Yeah, this one is Measure J. We got 250,000 for Measure J for that, and 50,000 from the CDBG funds.
Joel, can I ask you and Don, you guys put things out to bid all of the time. Is that, from your knowledge, your background, your experience, a range from $250,000 to $500,000? Is that unusual?
Well, when you have 11 companies bidding, every one of those estimators, depending on the financial condition of each one of those companies, is going to come in where they think they're going to make their profit. So I don't know that it's unusual. We don't normally get, I mean, for our projects, we get maybe 5 to 6 bidders, and usually those are closer together. I don't see it as unusual. It is surprising that some of them, the higher pricing that came in at 550. So we went back and looked to see, we evaluated the proposal, the bid from the lowest bidder to see if anything's missing. And I don't think we came up with anything that could, any red flags, if you will. They might have good connections with some suppliers of concrete or block. metal, so we don't know where the contractor's coming from.
Okay.
Are these prefabricated or are they going to be block built again?
No, these are gonna be block built.
Block built, okay.
So I'm sorry to repeat myself, but this is from the line item that was approved and then shelved, but you're going to award the contract this month? Am I missing something? According to this budget, is it the line item in this 1920 budget that it was from or previous?
19.
I believe it's previous.
Yeah. 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
Well, there is in this park restrooms renovations repairs of 1.6 million that was taken out of the budget.
Yeah, this particular restroom was not part of that budget.
So where was it from? Prior?
Yeah, and I don't have background information in front of me right now, Jeffrey. I can look at old notes and try to find it for you too.
That's what I'm scrambling right now, trying to find exactly where we budgeted, but it is Measure J funds that were approved. And I could start looking through it, but we can get you that answer. It's easier if I send you an email exactly where it's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main question is whether, and I know there's more money now, does this have to be something that we reinstate to the budget, or is it?
No, the funds are available.
2018 or 2019 funds that were already allocated, or is these going to be new funds that have to be allocated in the 2020-21 because it's not in the 1920, right, Jeffrey?
No,
Yeah, I mean, based on the budget that Nancy just sent, there's nothing in 2019
Right.
or 2020 that would cover this. So it must be something from before.
If you don't mind, we can send you an email along with the other requested materials to let you know.
Yeah, that would be great.
Because we'll have to go backwards and try to figure out where it came from and what year.
Okay, thank you.
So
There's been a lot of changes for the last 2 years on these projects, so it's a little difficult to answer immediately.
Okay, I understand.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah.
I'm over here clicking away. I know I can find it. I was trying hard to get it to you. But
Well, which restroom is this one?
Sunrise Park.
Sunrise Park. And I remember seeing this. It's just everything's fallen off the radar for the last year. So it's like,
So
I
on
see it
November
you have to
12th,
go back.
yeah.
I see a Desert Highland one for
So on-
$250.
Yeah, so on November 12th, the City Council of 2020, the City Council received an item regarding Sunrise Park, Dignity Park, and Desert Highland Park. And we laid out the strategy that we were going to do. And then in the fiscal impact of that staff report, we requested the funds. So some from Measure J, Quimby fee for Desert Highland Park.
I'm sorry, was that Desert Highland, did you say?
Yeah, or James will just, yeah.
That's from the Quimby.
Quimby.
We're using
Yeah.
Quimby funds for that project.
Yes, so
So it's not coming from Measure J funds, it's coming from the Quimby.
no, Measure J is gonna fund the Sunrise Park.
150,000, right?
Yeah.
So we'll get to the information. I think.
Yeah, but it's
it is
in
allocated. We have the
the
funds.
it's in the City Council staff report for November 12th of 2020.
Yeah, I understand. I just wanted to know whether it has to come out of this or if it's already budgeted from the past.
Yep.
It's already budgeted. If you want
I'm
to
sorry, I have
screen it.
one more question about Sunrise Park that I've
Sure.
been trying to ask. And this is a question for Joel, or it might be for other commissioners as well. Am I imagining that we had said that Sunrise Park was going to be like a pilot or like a test in terms of like resistant materials, and that was going to help us determine how best to upgrade other bathrooms and other parks? Is that still part of this bid, or is that just like totally dated now and we're moving forward
So-
another way?
Let me share my screen and let me walk you through what's being constructed, and it'll kind of answer some of that question. We'll walk through that a little bit. So let me see if I can share my screen. Can you guys see the screen there?
Mhm.
Yes.
The restroom? Yeah. So this is what we're building. It's what our goal was to create a restroom that could easily be duplicated in multiple locations and scaled down. So this one has 5 doors, but there's also some, so the 2 toilets in the middle can be adjusted and we can shrink it down. So if there's an area where we need less stalls, we can do it, but it'll all come from this particular design. So this is kind of, we can play around with, or we can change some of the texture of the block, and maybe the colors of the steel and the canopy out there. But for the most part, this is what we want to duplicate at all the restrooms. So we have a consistent restroom throughout the city.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's really resilient. Our architect put a lot of time into making sure that the utilities are tamper resistant, or I guess they're harder to destroy,
Mhm.
but without making it look like a prison, if you will. So this is the old structure at Sunrise Park that's being removed and replaced with that.
That's in the back of the baseball diamond, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's in a crazy place.
And Commissioner Soto, I think what you were thinking about as this being a pilot project, it's not necessarily to test the materials and things like that. It was our understanding, the direction from this commission, as well as Parks and Rec Commission, as well as City Council, was this is a ultra high priority. Like, we need to build this as soon as we can. What we were talking about as this being a pilot is like, we had no idea what the costs would actually be in this COVID situation, if it was really high or really, on target, like this one did come in on target. And so given that information, we would soon turn around and put out the other 2 restrooms out to bid, now that we have firm construction numbers. But that was how we wanted to use it as a pilot project.
100% agree, Don. I didn't mean like test it like
how
well it lasts in 2 years, but just kind of like this will help us. This will give us a blueprint on how to move forward with the other.
I just wanted the public who watches this to understand
very
that.
important.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so really the last project that I'll update you on is the Downtown Park project. I know that one in particular is important to the community. The project is still moving forward. The garage parking structural repairs to the parking garage is really one of the main reasons why there was very little movement or work progress on that structure or on the park itself, because the structure had to be retrofitted and fixed. Just about a month and a half ago or 2, all those repairs were completed. So now the contractor is, making the necessary adjustments to be able to continue the work on top of that structure, to backfill it with dirt, and then continue on with the park project. It is delayed quite a bit, but the contractor is still moving forward.
When you say delayed quite a bit, what is your estimated opening date now?
Well, the latest projection from the contractor was it would be complete by June of this year.
Does that mean delicate plantings could be happening May, June timeframe?
We were told by the contractor, and it didn't happen, is that this within the next 2 weeks they were actually going to start doing the planting of the palm trees, and they had plans to do it, but they're looking at other ways to move forward with the palm trees, and I guess you're asking me if I know exactly when they'll be doing the delicate planting, and if the schedule continues, it will be further into the year.
Yeah.
But I guess the only thing I can say is that the plantings they have a 1-year warranty, and they will have to replace them, and it's going to be on the contractor. If anything dies, they're responsible for replacing.
Okay.
Well, we're still hopeful that we can move, people will be able to be there in July.
Yeah, it's with the pandemic, the structural repairs, the project took on a complexity that it shouldn't have been there. The cost also increased. I know we've reported that the cost to fix the actual structure that wasn't really anticipated as part of the budget is adding significant cost into the project.
How much did it add?
I think I don't have a good figure for you right now, but I can provide that for you for our next meeting, or even in an email. I can tell you exactly where we're at.
Yeah, I think it would be good to keep an update on what the total cost of the park is.
I will reserve comment.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, those are my updates. I really I would like to have had better news for the park. Hopefully, I mean, it's already a year in. It would have been nice to have had it completed, but the significant issues that came up with the structural repairs have really pushed.
Who's the project manager over that? Is it the construction company that was the low bid? Is it the architect?
So it's a team, right? We have a firm, Wildan, that's doing construction management and inspection of the contractor. We also have the team of Rios Clemente, and their architects and their landscape architects are all in weekly meetings. They're all actively answering questions, requests for information from the contractor. So that's my team. I'm the project manager for the city side, so I get to see what's going on, and I'm working with the contractor, trying to answer questions and having my construction management team keep the contractor honest.
Okay, I just thought with something that was fully funded, we would kind of move at the speed of the tribe, and yeah, it's disappointing to see it several months behind.
It really is. So those are my updates. I can answer other questions.
I have a question for some of the smaller ones you mentioned up front that you might need the gym floor and things. Is there anything that would delay moving forward? I mean, if you need that money, can we pre-approve that, or?
I think I think we do need an action from the commission that then I could take and include in a staff report for the council to move the money. Correct, Nancy?
Sorry, correct.
Is there anything else you would need pre-approval for?
Well, do you want to go through the list, and do you want to add the 30,000 for the additional 30,000 for the? Is that in our budget already, Joelle? The gym floors, right?
No, so that's what he's referring to. It's additional 30,000 for gym floors, additional 30,000 for the curtains, and maybe the 20,000, the additional 10,000 for the landscaping.
Yeah, so that would just have to be like a motion of some sort, and then you could take it to council.
Right, and then I will reserve the playground surfacing total cost till the next meeting, because I just don't have a good grasp on it. And if you want to wait for the information that Stacy's going to provide, wait to take action on that to the next meeting. So I guess right now we're only asking for $60,000, 30 for the gym floor and 30 for the acoustics at the pavilion.
Jeffrey, are you going to make that motion?
Yeah, I would like to motion that we approve that 60,000 for those two projects to be allocated.
Yeah, I
second.
would just, before we vote on that, can I just make a request to Joel, maybe for the next time, let's separate the curtains at the pavilion and the acoustics at the pavilion, since we're going to be funding them separately. That way we know what we funded when we have it.
Are we funding them separately?
For me, I
Right now,
consider
we're
it,
increasing.
I thought it was 130 for curtains and acoustics.
right, I consider it one
Let's
project.
say 150 for curtains.
Yes, yeah, it's not 130, it's 150.
150.
Yeah,
Right, for both.
so it's 80 more.
So you're
Wait,
saying
Where do we come with 150? I'm sorry, I thought it was 130.
From Joelle's update.
It says 130, right?
130.
130. Are you looking at the pavilion landscaping? We're not voting on that.
Now, gym floor is 130 and curtains and pavilion was 150 on the paper I have.
Oh, mine says 130. I'm sorry.
Ours
Yeah, I
says
see 130.
That was probably an old figure.
Are you looking at the February 18th memo?
Mine's January.
Oh, yeah, it's been updated since then, so it's
Okay, so
130.
it's only 130, Nancy?
Yes, and that's for both of them. It's one project.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna comment on that. It's one project that we're doing together. We're using what we've learned on the shade structures to being able to use government contracting for those, and we can get those delivered quicker.
Okay.
We need a motion.
We have a
right?
motion and a
We have
second.
a motion and we have a second. Any other questions?
Call for the vote.
So all in favor of the $60,000 to be split between the gym floor at James O. Jesse and the pavilion acoustics?
Mhm.
aye.
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 Okay, so anyone opposed? Okay, so that is a unanimous vote.
Who seconded that motion?
Sid
Brian.
Craig.
No, I didn't.
Brian did.
Oh, Brian did? I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
Brian. I thought I saw Sid.
No, I wanted to, but Brian got the jump on me. So.
Come on, Sid.
Snooze, you lose.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so
Yeah.
Chantel, you have a list of what we're going to send to the commissioners. There were 3 items, correct?
Mhm.
And we'll try to send them all at one time. That restroom's going to drive me crazy until I find it.
Yeah.
Listen, you
I
found
wake it up in the middle of the night going, where's that restroom?
you found $4 million. I'm sure you can find that.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments, requests?
I
Do
just
you
want to.
want an update on the commissioners? The city clerk gave me something to read to you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Would you like that?
Yes, please.
This is from him. So after some unforeseen delays, the city council subcommittee consisting of council member Woods and Mayor Pro Tem Middleton are prioritizing which commissions need vacancies filled first and screening applications for interviews. They are focused on filling existing vacancies and addressing those terms that expire in December 2020. We ask for everyone's patience and urge existing members with expired terms to continue serving until new or reappointments can be made as permitted by the city charter. I've informed the subcommittee that the highest priorities, in my opinion, Anthony's opinion, are Planning Commission and Measure J Commission. However, scheduling is a challenge as these commissions require the full city council's participation in the interviews. As for the June 2021 vacancies, as soon as we conclude filling the existing vacancies, the same subcommittee will begin working on the next batch of vacancies. I anticipate we will begin reaching out to incumbents to determine if they are interested in reappointment in late April, with interviews to occur in May through July. If any existing members are unable to serve past their term expiration, please notify the city clerk so we can ensure there are enough members to reach a quorum.
All right.
Can I
Thank
ask,
you.
just on that line, do we then when do we re-vote the chair and vice chair?
Would that be in June? I mean,
Yeah.
typically, or, yeah, I thought it was, I'm trying to remember when we did that.
Can you ask that question?
Yes.
I think we did it in February.
Yeah, but we shouldn't. It's either, I want to say we have a meeting before we break for summer in July, possibly. It's either the June meeting or the July, where we typically vote, because it's the start of the new fiscal year, where we vote for chair and all the positions. And of course, mine expired last June. And I understand, aren't they still supposed to interview me if I'm staying on for another term?
According to his statement, yes, they will. They will be reaching out to you.
And Sid has expired too.
Yes.
Yeah, I know I'm not the only one. And David Gray dropped off. So, all right, well.
And just to confirm, Francis left and David Gray left and Dan passed away.
Correct.
Well, if we have another comment, Brian, do you want to talk about our meeting or do you want me to? Or?
Oh, yeah, dive in, please.
So the communications subcommittee, which I guess is myself and Brian, met with Amy Blaisdell about restarting the communication efforts of Measure J. And it also came up because particularly the shade structures that were just recently approved for the additional budget. They didn't actually, when council discussed it, there was not a mention of Measure J, and we wanted to mention that this is sort of an ideal community project to highlight what Measure J funds go towards. And I think a number of these other ones, the parks ones and the gym floors, it's important to stress that this is Measure J going to fund this, because as we move on in time, there's fewer and fewer, more and more people move here and people forget, fewer people remember what Measure J is all about. And eventually the tax may come up again, but regardless, it's still important that we get that out into the community. And so we talked with Amy about also giving regular updates on projects that are funded or approved in various social media forums. And I think she was working on Naomi submitted a template, and I think she was going to work on updating it. I haven't seen that yet, but the idea would be to use that for social media, and I think they do mainly Nextdoor and Facebook, to mention the projects that are funded by Measure J, and if it warranted a press release, to do a press release, and then also to include it in the city's publication with the Chamber of Commerce. And to re-look at whether we did a direct mail piece to all the residents at a certain point, which may make sense after as I see it now, and we haven't discussed this, now that we have this new funding when we look at other projects. I don't know. Did I miss anything, Brian?
I think the tag along, which is less of a priority right now than the general awareness, is reactivating that step we started a year ago of how to the mechanics of calling for recommended projects from the community.
Yeah, actually, Naomi brought that a number of those things up, was to encourage community members that they could attend the meetings, that they could contact Measure J, that they could make suggestions. We don't have a formal process now, but to remind people that there's a transparency here in how this money is allocated and spent, and community can have a public opinion.
I'd like to ask, when these projects, Joelle and Don, start, like the putting in of the flooring for the restrooms, could we ask that there be signage put up the way they did in front of the police department with the big logo of the Measure J, letting the public see in those areas that this is being funded by Measure J? So people seeing the floor going in at the gym, they really see that Measure J supported this and arranged it. I just think we've talked about before, and Naomi's talked about the fact that we need to get the image out there again of our image of Measure J. So just if there can be some type of signage out there.
Yeah, Steve.
I think it's, I'm just gonna add, yeah, I think the physical markers on projects is really good, but just kind of the regularity, right? Like the best marketing is reminder marketing and people who know that you exist and that you're doing work. And so that was the kind of the goal with the social media, is just to say, look, these are the summary of what was discussed at the Measure J meeting. This is what was approved. This is what we're considering for, next. And so that there is just some base level understanding by community members about what was decided and what's on the horizon. And so that way, if they want to participate, they know it kind of puts it on their radar as well. So it's kind of not just new stuff, but also kind of committing to like a frequency too, that invites participation.
So Naomi, just to follow up, Amy had asked for us to talk about projects, to let her know about projects after the meeting. And is this now the appropriate time to say about the gym floor and the acoustics at the pavilion?
I would probably wait until it actually got approved by council,
Okay.
so they don't get a shock that
Yeah.
they didn't know about it.
Better.
But we could start with the shade structures.
But isn't that then announcements of the city council? We're making announcements of what Measure J is doing. They're essentially separate decisions. We're recommending such and such project goes forward. That's a separate decision and a separate announcement of whether city council approved it.
I can't understand. I didn't hear. I can't hear you, and it might be just my computer or.
I can hear.
I'm saying it seems to me like the vote that we just took on the two projects to recommend to go to, we're not saying projects are getting funded. Our announcement would be Measure J has recommended these two projects.
Yeah, you could say recommended. That's not a problem.
That's the only thing we're saying. We're not saying these projects were fully funded. We're saying these are the projects we're recommending go to city council. We're trying to delineate the conversations, the decisions that are happening here at Measure J versus what are finalized at city council, so people understand the difference between the two.
Yes.
That only scares me a little from the standpoint if we announce that we've recommended something to council and the council doesn't do it. It scares me a little.
People know that difference?
Again?
Yeah, it might be a little bit stirring the pot if you ask me, but.
Yeah.
I think it might have the externality of inviting controversy that we don't want to create.
Yeah.
What I would do is I think Amy, we will make the recommendation to her about these things now and let her know. We can, Brian and Naomi, we could draft something, send to her, and she may have to review it and decide. I mean, she can't release anything anyway without them knowing. So I think there may be a decision. It would seem to me that some of these things may be minor enough that they will just say, okay. I think if it was something like $1.5 million for the lights, they might want to wait and get that approved by council before they said anything. That's my guess. But
yeah, I think it's like it's perfectly fine for these two small projects, but sunlight doesn't hurt and transparency shouldn't hurt the process. And if a community member were to watch this and then see something at city council that is different, or then just, we don't make the final decisions, and that's not what we'd be announcing. And I think it's okay for community members to participate both in this process to recommend, to understand our process of how we recommend projects, and also then to know what the next step is, which is when it goes to city council, and then they can participate there as well. But it's very confusing to know the difference between the two and know when to participate here, and then to understand that it's going to be different at city council. So
I see you. Yeah. Well, then I think you're right. We should proceed based upon letting Amy know what Measure J has voted to move forward on. And
right, and that's all that Amy asked for, is just a summary of what was discussed at Measure J. And that's all we would be.
Right. I agree.
Okay, anything else?
I have on the commissioner, since we have a number of vacancies, and I know that they are trying to prioritize it. Do you know how they are promoting the search?
No, we're not involved with that. That would probably, you'd have to go through the city clerk's office for that information.
Okay, thank you.
I think most of it is web-based. I mean, we certainly can try to recruit or, you know, look at people that we know or know of and suggest joining the commission.
True.
Well, they do have, and I don't know if they're doing this, is that, you know, there are, you know, the neighborhood newsletters, and 1PS is having meetings, and there's various other groups that are having meetings, and I think it might be a good idea to get it out into those, so that, because it often takes people a little while to decide, especially something like Measure J, which people might not be aware of, is that maybe we can ask that you know, it be included in whatever other meetings of community meetings that are going on.
Maybe
I'll
even the chamber
find out
magazine,
when.
the city chamber magazine could be a good plug-in there.
The City Chamber magazine, the neighborhood, Denise does a weekly neighborhood newsletter. We could actually talk to Amy about that as well, just in terms of what, you know, on the social media. And then I believe, Sid, doesn't 1PS still doing their regular meetings by Zoom?
Yeah, we're doing it once a month, and it's also, we have Denise also putting out information.
Sid, do you attend those meetings, 1PS?
Yeah, I do.
You know, they always have comments section, and you can say that I'm sure they all know you're a Measure J commissioner, but you're welcome to introduce yourself and say, hey, the city, we're looking at commissioners, and that they can go to the city website and fill out the form or contact the city clerk, and they'll direct you to the link.
I will do that because I've asked Anthony, and the public can always, they can always get the application online, and they can complete the application on any commission that they may have an interest in, and that's ongoing. But I'll bring
again, if we know of people, you know, that's a great way too, to.
Are the applications up now, Jim?
They're up all the time.
They are? Okay.
Yeah, the applications are available.
They're all the time.
They're there all the time, Jeffrey. Yeah. I asked Anthony about that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, folks, our next meeting will be on March 18th. I promise I'll be on time. Sorry for my tardiness today. And any other last comment?
I just wanted to say I enjoyed seeing Brian holding his baby dog and seeing Naomi holding her baby child.
I think Mercedes has much more discretion than my dogs do.
I'd like to say thank you to the staff for all their work. And
Yes.
The updates are so helpful and really makes us look more in the game to know what we have and to spend it. So, and thank you, Jim, for your leadership.
Yes.
This was great news today, that, you know, there's a lot more that we thought. That,
And hopefully it'll keep going that way, up instead of down.
So, but I'm sorry to delay this. So when did the idea to refinance the bond, is that expected, or is that just come up?
We've pretty much, we have a bond consultant, and when the interest rates dropped pretty low, she contacted us and recommended that we try to refinance all of our debt.
That's great.
That's great.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. Enjoy your evenings, and we will see you in a month.
Stay well.
Great. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.